Hello everyone, welcome back. I'm Aaron Medic Chamberlain, and joining me is the victorious Mini Trupax. Now, Mini Trupax, you and Upset have been bigged up as the big AD carry rookies coming into this split. How does it feel to beat him at the only the third week of the split?
I mean, this is basically a whole habit, no? Like, we beat him when he was Schalke on Giants, and right now we just beat him, like, really hardcore. You know, like, we even gave him Kalista, you know, I wanted a challenge, you know, Kalista is permaban. I'm like, give him Kalista, I don't care, they won't let me Kalista. They give him Kalista, like, he doesn't do anything, I just out-rotate him, I out-micro him. I actually really laughed a lot when he said that he has an edge over every rookie AD carry, that he has more knowledge, and this guy, I don't know. No, but it was really good.
You seem to be pretty proud with your performance in this game.
I mean, I'm always proud of me and my team. No, doesn't matter what.
Excellent. So now that you've defeated Upset and Schalke, what are your next objectives as an AD carry?
I mean, so far, I already said it, but I want to be like the best AD carry, right? Like, you don't aim for mid-tier or bot-tier, you aim for the top. So right now I feel like Reckless is the best, even though he's underperforming, even though Ansam is really performing super well, even against us. I think they are both the best AD carriers right now. I just want to be top 3 at least, coming into playoffs, like try my best in playoffs. Maybe, who knows, you know, win it, like G2 Split, and then after Summer Split, we're going to take over.
So do you think Vitality can challenge for the top spot this split?
Definitely.
How are you going to do that?
Just look at our roster. Like, people thought we were underdogs. Once again, like, you know, we come from Challenger Cities, smurfing hard, like, winning every single game. And people are like, these guys got lucky. They will choke on stage. We go on stage 3-0 war. We go promotion tournament. We win 3-1 against NIP when they were, like, in their best shape. They're like, Schalke will beat them. We beat Schalke and they still dubbed us, you know, like, but it's fine, just let them talk, let people talk, you go there, and, well, so far we've been doing really well. Yamato is an incredible coach. I think we are fitting really well with Kaba, and I don't know, I just feel like we're gonna aim really high.
You just keep winning, man. Congratulations again on the win today. We're gonna hand it back across towards the analyst desk. Shocks, take it away.
That was a great interview. That's probably my favorite interview of the split so far. This guy doesn't hold back. They're winning, they're bouncing back from that Misfits game, and he wants the world to know what he wants to do. And it seems like he had a lot to say, especially about that rivalry with Upset.
He was definitely waiting for his chance to finally get an interview where he got to talk about his rivalry against Upset. And even better for him, it's when he's already winning, he's already beat him, he had a great performance. Like, everything right there aligned for Mini Trupax, and it was a great interview.
It was fantastic. I'm just going to rewatch it later because it was very entertaining. Not everything went his way, though. Player of the game went to his teammate Jizuke with 57% of the votes. This guy's just tallying them up as well. And I think this is also what he was talking about, Mini Trupax. It's me and it's my team. And Maurice, they've definitely bounced back from last week.
It's impressive for me. Like, I really expect them to have some nerves, and I think maybe in the early part of the game kind of saw that. But they just played the game. They were aggressive when they needed to be, and I don't know how... You're inspired. I'm actually really impressed. I'm just really impressed.
I agree. I love the fact that the way they get back in a game is not by sitting back and hoping the enemy team messes up at a Baron or something. It's by forcing some fights, in this case around mid lane, that surprised Schalke. And then they suddenly start outplaying them that way. That's how you get back in a game.
That's fantastic, and that's maybe something that other teams in the league can learn from. And unconnectedly, I'm moving on to the next match between G2 Esports and Splyce. Because G2, well, the reigning champions, they came into the split with 4 new players, hoping to defend their title for a 4th time in a row, 5th time actually. However, no team has won the EU LCS after going 1-3 to start off the split. A little quick stat, or a shock stat for you guys. So it's over, basically.
I guess the segment is done. Go to game.
Yeah, go to game. No, obviously, we want to have a bit of a discussion. I just want to ask you guys, how will G2 turn this around? Amazing.
They have to find more things to do for the bot lane. I think the bot lane itself, they are inherently good players. That's why they were signed. But they are given no objective within the games. They're just existing. And I think not leading them somewhere is such a difficult thing to do.
I also think they have to focus on Wonder and Perks as the 2 best performing members on the team. Early game-wise, they're winning the lanes. Like you see the CSD at 15 minutes is very positive for both the guys. They're involved in a lot of kills as well. Right now, because of what Maurice talked about with the bot lane, the focus needs to be on top side. And I want to see Jankos Even in this meta here where you are playing a lot of tanks, I want to see him really get the synergy with Perks and Wonder needed to do some more to snowball the game from top side.
All right, so it's not about what he does first to get them ahead. It's for you more about Jankos keeping that going into the late game. And I feel like that is something we've said about him in the past. So that might be a worrying sign.
Maybe. I think it's going to take a bit of time for them to really figure out how they want to play these three guys together. Like, I was looking at this roster coming into the split saying, wow, if it's a very aggressive meta where you're playing carries in top and early game junglers, then this will pop off on the top side with Jankos and these two guys. But it is a very slow meta, which doesn't seem to be in their favor at the moment.
So if Perks is doing fine and Wonder's doing fine alone without help and the bot lane's doing bad, then why doesn't Jankos go bot lane then?
I personally don't think you have to play around the losing lane.
No, you don't really have to. But what I think has to happen is that they have to find some kind of identity. And I think that's the issue. As you already said, like, the top side of the map is performing well. But you still have to, like, allow the bot lane to do something and understand, hey, we're not going to get help. We have to play towards top side. And doing that is fine by itself.
All right. And then in the late game, how does it look there for G2? Are they able to turn those games around?
I think that's probably the biggest weakness right now is, one, how they're playing late game team fights, but also how they're drafting for late game team fights. Like the Skarner draft, we've laughed a lot about that one, where they pick blind Skarner and then there's a Tam Kench on the other side getting locked in and they can't win late game team fights. These kind of things can't happen right now for G2 because they're not the old G2 where you had Sven and you said, listen, we got 40 minutes, Sven, you carry the game, it's fine. That's not happening anymore. This is not the same team. If they can't win early game hard enough to snowball the game, they have to get better at late game.
I think that's fair. We are going very hard on them, but it is because the organization are the four-time champions, and they, I think, deserve to be criticized a bit when it isn't maybe going the way we thought with the players that they've gotten, right? Were you expecting them to be further along at this point?
I thought they wouldn't come out swinging. I thought they would be more prepared. I don't see any preparation in their pick ban. I don't see any preparation in their play. I think they look really uncoordinated. I think it's almost an insult to the organization and to their past success.
Oh, wow. Okay, harsh word from Amazing, but we'll see how they play in this game. They're up versus Splyce, and Splyce, they also have their faults, but in late game team fighting, at least they have been showing up, and they have been really good. So is this kind of what is going to make this game go in favor of Splyce?
I think right now the best win condition for Splyce, it's been full-on late game fights, protect Corby, set Corby up to succeed. Everyone else is just kind of frontline and right in front of him, standing there. And if they can do that again, I see them have a great chance of beating G2 in this game.
These are late game team fights. Obviously, the Pentakill comes in and they turn this game around because this was a tough game for them. The Unicorns of Love win, they get through a base race. Is that not the way you're supposed to win games, or is that superior late game decision making?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think they are kind of smart late game, but I still do think that you cannot just rely on scraping out wins every time, because sometime the luck is going to swing in the other people's favor and it's going to go against you.
I just think the synergy we see from Splyce in the late game is much better than what we see in the early game. They don't seem to have a plan in the early game for how to not fall behind, or at least try to get a big advantage. Xerxes is not the kind of jungler who just kind of snowballs two solo laners and get them ahead. So they rely a lot on going to late game, and they have shown coordination in team fights and in moves, like macro moves late, which is good.
All right, so you did call out on G2 side a couple of individuals or specific lanes that should do better. Amazing. Is there anywhere where there needs to be improvement individually on Splyce?
Basically, as a contrast to G2, their top lane and mid lane have been underperforming. Niski has shown no real lane powers. He's always been out-farmed, he has been out-roamed, he has had no impact, and Old Amne has been left on his own. I think he's almost been abandoned. By Xerxes especially, I think their coordination is non-existent for now. And for them to actually do well, I want Old Amne to actually have an identity within that team and give him some purpose, because this guy left his old organization to re-identify himself, and he has had no resources to do that, and I think that's disappointing to me.
Yeah, he also commented before the season when he was talking to Thorin. He said, I want to build an identity for me, and I want to do something else. I want to maybe step up and be that carry. So he definitely has the same idea, but it's hard to do that if the foundations of the team aren't working out yet.
Exactly. Like, if Niski started winning mid lane and Xerxes focused more on early game, suddenly you can have a mid lane and a jungler who could actually play around a counter pick top for Old Amne. If he's playing Ilaoi or Camille, these kind of champions, that can work for Splyce. But right now, that's not how the team is playing. I'm not saying that's the best way for them to win. I actually think it's okay in this meta to say late game is where it's at. Most games will go to late game. Giants are finding success that way. They're sitting 4-1 in the league. I think that's Splyce's best way to win this game as well.
Well, we're just waiting for some mouse problems for Niski to get resolved that can allow us to delve a bit deeper into this. We see Peter Dunn there on stage with Splyce. Obviously, we had high hopes for him and the project Splyce as well. And I think the reason why we are also being quite harsh on the lineup is because individually they have some people that, you know, speak to us, that say, okay, Odoamne has had so much success. He's always been very successful in that top lane because Singh is back. What will he be able to do? But it's not gelling yet. When is it crunch time for these guys? Like, when is it going to be dramatic if they don't show improvement? Because for Schalke, just to go back to that example, you said, you know, this is a playoff team, it's fine, I can cut them some slack. So how do you feel about Splyce in that regard?
Kind of looking halfway through the split is where typically I want to see a team who's had clear weaknesses show that they understand this is our problem and we're working on a fix. It might take a lot of time to do it, but we've in the past seen teams who they were really bad at, let's say, late game team fighting. And it never changed. The entire split, that was a problem, and we called that out. For Splyce and for G2, like, once we're halfway through this split, like, I want to see a much better late game from G2, and I want to see a much better early game from Splyce.
And we're approaching that moment rapidly, and this is why this is also such a key matchup for these two teams. When you talk about habits and trying to change things, G2 traditionally is a team that took it slow early and then ramped up towards the late game and was really good in those late game team fights. So it might be extra difficult for some of the remaining members, for Perkz then, to kind of work against what he's been training for the last 2 years or the way they like to play. Is that fair?
I don't think we can give him that kind of liberty almost. I think he has been playing in so many metas that he knows how to play aggressive, like let's say MSI 2017, if I remember correctly, when he had the Lucian mid lane, whatever it is, and just dashed in 24/7. These kind of things are going to repeat itself, and he can play aggressive and can play these styles. It's just for them to actually find the identity, and given Wunder carry picks actually accelerates the game for you if you want that to happen. And that would be like a great way to solve a lot of issues.
I mean, that's definitely one way to look at it. I personally don't mind that they're not trying to just play crazy snowball games all the time. Like Perkz talked about getting the basics down.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of the main purpose now for the lineup. And we do see some early games where they have really good rotations, and they clearly show they know what to do to get ahead in the game. But then we get to late game,
it falls apart.
And it falls apart. The enemy comes outscales them, or they make a mistake. And that's kind of a problem for them right now. But if that ends up getting better, because they draft a great late game comp, and they use that to beat Splyce now, they already show us a lot of improvement, and it's already week 3.
Yeah, we're about to get into game. Niski is just confirming his settings. So, round of thoughts. I hear you guys saying a lot about enabling Wunder, and the same thing I hear for Odoamne. Let him find a style, let him play his own game. So, is that the biggest point of winning, or point of winning? That's not English. The point where they can secure an advantage. Happens.
I think so. I think it's also down to the mid lane matchup. I think both, like just the solo lanes. I think if Splyce improves their solo lane play enough, I think they should get away with a win. If G2 is unable to perform to the usual standards on that side of the map, I think Splyce is going to win.
The players are ready, so I'm going to cut you off. But woulda, coulda, shoulda, who's going to win, Splyce or G2?
G2.
G2?
G2 too.
G2, 2 votes. Well, both teams will be looking to shake things up here in week 3, so let's send it over finally to Drakus and Verius to kick things off.
Thank you, Shocks. Of course, I'm excited to see who comes out on top here. And now a lot of confidence in the G2 lineup, but also a laundry list of things that they need to accomplish. Let's remind everything of this G2 lineup. They're going to be starting on the blue side of this game. And in the top lane, they do have Wunder. In the jungle, it's going to be Jankos. Mid lane, Perkz, 80 carry Hjarnan, supported with Deed, and their coach Grabs.
Meanwhile, their opposition is Splyce, who are going to be looking to try and get themselves another win after taking down Schalke in week 2. Their top laner is Odoamne, jungler Zuse, mid laner Niski, 80 carry Kobe, support Kasing, and their coach Peter Dunn. And I'm going to take the spotlight from you for a second, Drakus, because we're about to jump into the draft. And the cool thing about this draft is we've heard from G2 side, they've made a couple of risky calls, going for a very early Skarner, leaving things like the Tom Kench open. We've seen a little bit of a weird orientation, but for Splyce, you know, I watched back their game last week when they brought out things like the Zillion, they did the Caitlyn Vigar. I was very impressed with how they were able to deal with Schalke's composition and be able to effectively nullify what Schalke was trying to do. And I feel like this is where we're starting to see the strength of Peter Dunn, where he's been praised for having good understanding of the game, a lot of knowledge, a lot of the pros respect his opinions and knowledge.
Okay, But
I think it's very exciting to see what the Splyce
I'm
roster
excited
can
too,
do.
and we are getting in Champions League, but I do want to remind you that they also picked Skarner and lost. So,
Yes.
yeah, so
But it made more sense when they picked Skarner.
there wasn't a Tom Kench on the other team. They took Tom Kench, and we'll see how G2 approaches it. Maybe Skarner will be a contested pick. We're going to find out, but for now, it's the traditional power picks banned away. Zach seeing a surprising rise in ban priority during this patch. Galio taken off the board as well, alongside the rise. So a lot of focus on the mid lane.
And we've been given my favorite champ select music of the new season, building that tension. Both teams do want to secure a win on the board. G2 want to get out of that 8th place spot. You can see a very surprising 1-3 record, as we see mainly a lot of standard bans, but it feels like stage 1 is going to be left open, and this has been one of Jankos's go-to jungle picks. It's something he's shown a lot of comfort on. It's something that he's shown a lot of early priority on as well, and I feel like that if it's left available, G2 will look to grab it.
And you heard it from Amazing on the desk. Wants to see more from Jankos. What can he do on this team? Can he find some of that early aggression we used to know him for? Will he retain a more supportive style? Well, they're going to make sure he can't be too supportive, as the Nunu is the final ban away, and the immediate Zoe lock-in coming in for Perks.
Looks like they're choosing to prioritize this over the Azir. Many mid laners are now considering Zoe to be a much stronger pick into Azir than originally thought, and we've seen that multiple times from Jizuke. We did see Perks bring out the Azir last week up against Caps when G2 went up against Fnatic, and he also demonstrated a very solid performance, but has left some of the strong picks open, like the Kog'Maw, considered S tier by many of the pros as well. And given that Nunu has raised in priority on the ban side for Splyce, initially you'd think that would go away, but no, they grabbed it for themselves, and now they could look to get themselves an early Tom Kench, or maybe even an early jungler in the form of Sejuani for Xerxes.
And is Vedius a prediction master? Yeah, all right, looks like that is going to be the case. Interesting to see Kog'Maw make it through and be picked up this early. Has been banned a lot in our previous games today.
Now, is this where we see the Jax Dracos? We've heard some rumblings about it. We have seen the Zac banned away. You're looking at some of the other junglers. Of course, it is the Java.
Yeah, but Vedius, we're talking about like the weird picks and the oddball picks and the questionable choices, and maybe G2 is just thinking, we need to calm down.
Very much agrees.
Let's keep it standard, let's keep it clean. So it is just going to be the Jarvan coming in the end.
And if they want to keep that safe standard route, they could go for the Gnar here, lock Wonder in a safe top laner, but perhaps they want to buy a little bit more time. They're going to wait to see if they can give Wonder a little bit more of a favorable matchup.
And additionally, get an AD carry before the second ban phase, stop any more from being banned away, as Splyce already have their premier pick. So both teams matching each other in terms of what they've chosen on early options.
Now remember, Splyce have the first pick here, so they could look to pinch a roll and then secure it for themselves very early on. So Tom Kench is a good example. You could ban away the Braum, and you could ban away perhaps something like the Janna, or trying to think of other supports that we've also seen.
I mean, it's a struggle because there are two. It's Braum, Tom Kench, and other stuff.
And I was going to say Alistar, but then even then, Tom Kench actually does pretty well into Alistar. So you take Braum off the boards. Oh, Lulu actually being banned away from G2. Interesting. Perhaps they're expecting a range support, given that we did see a zillion from Kasing last week.
Splyce aren't afraid to play range champions and look for a little bit more lane dominance. And of course, on this patch, it is easier after the nerf to Relic Shield on ranged champions.
Colby, he is going to be playing that Kog'Maw. Looking forward to seeing how he does, because I do believe he is one of the most consistent performers on this Splyce roster. Being put in a position to carry along with Niski means a lot of the emphasis is going to be on securing a solid bot lane duo. Lulu Kog, I think, is the big denial that G2 wanted to illustrate here, and the zillion respect ban. You would have to assume that the Tom Kench comes out right now for Splyce, but this will mean that in the 2 versus 2, Colby and Kasing will get pushed underneath their tower. It's very much now dependent on, do they want that peel, or do they want to try and get a little bit more lane dominance?
Tommy playing with their hearts as he looks for the hover overs here, but it looks like in the end it will be the Tom Kench locked in. So a lot of protection for the double threats on the side of Splyce. Now G2 has to figure out exactly what they want here. Wadid, mostly known for his playmaking champions on Rawcat, but has been struggling kind of to find his role on this G2 lineup. Looks like this time around it may be a bit more of a defensive choice, as Janna remains the hover over.
I think Janna would be a fine pick into the Tom Kench. It would still give you good pushing power. It synergizes nicely with Tristana, and considering how strong Kog'Maw is in the mid to late game, having that additional bit of AD from the Janna shield and the ability to disengage against the Sejuani, I believe has a lot of value. So I quite like the pickup from G2. I think given the underperformance of the bottom lane too, picking something very safe and something to easily disengage and get yourself to safety, it also makes a lot of sense.
Ornn now the final pickup for G2, despite the nerfs coming through, is still incredibly powerful in team fights, but we'll get that power a little bit less frequently. We'll struggle a little bit more in the laning phase, and Splyce has to be feeling pretty good. Odoamne finally getting the counter pick. Maybe this is the game where he's going to get a lot of attention on the top side of the map. The other two lanes kind of content to scale up.
Now, I think an Alawi would make a lot more sense in this draft. But they're going to go for the tank option, Dracos. They're going to take the safe route. They're going to go for the map. I'm really sad.
I mean, to be fair, they have two very good scaling threats.
They do,
Kog'Maw,
yes.
insane in the mid game, but Azir insane in the late game, right? They both do tons of damage, but
you know, we look at this
Odo
comp,
told us he was going to carry. He said, this is my time.
and I feel like with this comp, an Alawi had the potential to be great, but regardless,
I mean,
composition...
in lane.
No, in teamfights too, because you have the follow-up with the Sejuani ultimate. I think you have a great way to kick off fights. Tom Kench flank too. Irrelevant.
All right,
She's not here.
I'm willing to believe it, but we'll save it for the next time.
Yeah, we'll save it for the next time. Maokai just makes sense in the overall composition of Splyce. Teamfight is the name of the game. Early on, they're going to struggle a little bit in top and bot because both those lanes are going to get pushed in by this G2 lineup. They've gone on themselves the Tristana plus the Janna. They've got an Ornn, very powerful pushing lanes. While Perkz may struggle a little bit, once he reaches about level 6, level 7, his Paddle Star's easily going to be able to match the sort of wave clear that Azir can bring out, and that's where we're looking for the roams. I want to see dives on top lane from G2. Maokai over in the LCK showed us how easy it is to dive this champion repeatedly. He is so easy to shut down in the early game, and G2 need to invest towards the top side, just like our analysts expect.
And I want to see the junglers, man. I want to see Xerxes. I want to see him find these opportunities, snowball these lanes early, make sure that it's not just a sit and wait kind of game. At the same time, I want to see Jankos. Where's he going to go? Where is this early aggression going to come from? How exactly is it going to go down as we get ready to get in the game? We are just waiting for a quick keyboard swap for Kasing. He has the wrong keyboard. He's explaining to our referees now. But for now, enjoy the intense music.
I love this music. It makes me feel very...
It's really, really intense for Champ Select. That's my only thing. I love it. It's intense. It builds me up. It's so hype.
What about when you're eating your cereal, you know?
Yeah.
Is he going to put it in his mouth? Oh.
It's really good that neither of us are allowed to produce any kind of adverts, because I think they'd all be stuff like that.
I mean, maybe they'd be like, I don't know, we'd put wigs on random people and get them dancing in front of them. It would be so weird,
That'd be awful.
It would be so
Get like
so
a baguette
weird.
if you're going to France or
Right,
something.
yeah.
Dress up like
they'd put like
League of Legends characters you should definitely ban in solo queue.
Why would they, maybe we'd consider giving someone a flute, and that would just look terrible on an ad. Absolutely terrible. So I'm glad that we don't do that kind of thing.
Yeah, Venius is like, what, ads to watch or something?
There have been some... My favorite ads, did you ever see the Cadbury's one with the monkey and the drums?
No.
It's about chocolate. Don't ask me why, but it's about a gorilla playing the drums, and it's all about chocolate. Great ad. Would highly recommend
It's like the movie Chocolat, which is not about chocolate at all, really.
Really?
Romance.
Wow.
Totally baited. Thought it was a chocolate
Definitely
movie.
would have been thrown off by that kind of a name.
But for now, Jankos.
He's focusing.
This is his prime and ready state, folks. Don't doubt that for a second.
He is not napping. He is focusing. He's meditating. He's getting into the zone. You can tell by the hands. Who sleeps like that?
No one. No one. You put a finger near that man's mouth, it's gone. He's ready. He's a predator at this point. He is ready to jump into that game and obliterate people.
Yeah, he is playing the Jarvan this game. Jarvan has the ability to make a lot of early ganks happen. We can see the classic Jankos style. The one thing we're going to have to keep track of is a thing that G2 love to do, which is invade enemy blue. They're currently on the blue side, and what you'll see is they'll take the first blue, the enemy team will take the first blue, and then they have a rough timing of when it will spawn. Then what they'll do is Perkz will set up a push, the bottom lane will set up a push, and you will see both Wadid and Perkz move with Jankos to invade and put pressure down onto the enemy blue buff. And they've done this so consistently multiple times throughout the first few weeks of the LCS. And they're pretty consistent at taking it away. if they don't take it away, at the very least, they're going to burn a couple of summoner spells, and it's just some of these early macro plays that G2 have demonstrated they are very effective at implementing.
And have to wonder how Splyce is going to handle it. What Splyce is going to do in the early game to shut G2 down. Of course, a level 1 going slightly awry, not the end of things, but if you keep giving G2 opportunities to snowball, things can very quickly turn against you. And when you're playing against a Zoe, you don't want to give her any chances to snowball. We saw what Jizuke could do in the previous game when he was given the opportunity to start picking members off, even after a difficult laning phase, even after a difficult level 1.
Yeah, and we praised Jizuke, but we gotta look back at the team fighting from Perkz last week. Yes, G2 as a whole have struggled in the mid to late game, but that man had some fantastic plays going up against Fnatic. His positioning was great, his bubbles were consistently landing, and while he did mess up the combo with the ult and the Q a couple of times, when it really mattered, this guy stepped up. So I'm very excited to see him play it once again. Even though she's obnoxious, a very fun champion to watch when she's played properly.
As long as you're not playing against her.
Yeah.
You don't want to watch someone else play her properly in your solo queue. But as an update, as to the reason why we are paused currently in game, Kasing has requested from League officials if he can swap his keyboard. There is no issues with the keyboard, but in terms of personal preference, you know, he's got the Tom Kench keyboard, he's got the Zillion keyboard.
Right.
None of this is true. I'm making this up as like, go, don't take that. Don't buy extra keyboards if you're like, oh, that's why
so that's what I do.
That's why I'm stuck in silver.
I need a
don't have a
Zoe
different
keyboard.
keyboard for every champ. No,
You were not wrong. One keyboard is fine, but for Kasing, just like his weird addiction to pillows the last time that he was in, or cushions, sorry, cushions. The last time he was in. Dude, he had to have his cushion or he couldn't play. Clearly he's overcome this, and now it's become about keyboards. But I can see him getting set up on stage. He is feeling hyped. He's feeling ready. Oh, look at the fire, the passion in his eyes.
He says, I'm playing Maokai, and I have never felt more alive in my entire life. I've just been informed that the keyboard has been plugged in. We're moments away from getting the game. Headsets being checked. Serious nostril flares.
We're just letting the tension mount.
Yeah, see, that's the nice thing about this music, is it's always, no matter what we're talking about, even if Venius ads to watch or whatever, tension is building.
Yes.
In the background.
So let's remind people, 2-2 is the current record for Splyce, 1-3 for G2. G2 want to get out of that 8th place spot. They want to begin the climb back to glory. And it can all start here, unless Splyce have something to say about it.
Dramatic pause. Crowd is ready. Vedius and I are ready. Hope you're ready at home, because it's time to get into game. G2 Esports versus Splyce. G2 Esports fighting back up from the bottom of the bracket. Can they bring Splyce down with them? Even up the score. Well, Splyce find themselves at 3-2. Now, as a reminder, if you're just joining us, two very different drafts, approaches, and how they wanted to play the game. Vedius, what was the most important takeaway on the side of Splyce? What is their objective here?
Slow early game. It's been a trend that they have stuck to. We heard the analysts talking about it earlier on, and we've seen it multiple times from Splyce. Just generally with their playstyle, they're not interested in building huge early game advantages. Their focus is on farming, waiting for item spikes like the Rage Blade done for the Cogmore, the Nash's Tooth finished for the Azir, and for a couple of the
That's a lot of things to get to the late game.
They're waiting, basically. Yeah. So Splyce, they're very much about the mid to late game team fighting.
But the other thing that's important to remember about this matchup, something we often forget, is this is a lot of former teammates battling. Wonder versus Kabe, Jankos versus Odo, and if you want to go real old school, Hjarnan versus Kasing. Man,
I'll never forget that interview on the analyst desk when Shox turned to Hjarnan and said, "Why do you think that your play is so good right now?" And he said simply, Kasing. And now he must go up against his former brother, his former teammate. But now they're bitter rivals.
Wouldn't he like to go up on the analyst desk, and when he's asked why is his play so good, say, "What did?"
That's his goal. That's where he would like to achieve. But the same for Jankos and Odo. Former brothers, teammates, they worked together. They went to Worlds together. And now they're bitter rivals. And I just feel like Wonder and Gobby, they're getting to that point where they soon too will become bitter rivals.
Xerxes, there you go. Guys, this is an analyst on our analyst desk.
This goes next. Oh, play Sejuani just for you.
Well, there you go.
He didn't really have a choice because Zach was
good.
banned.
He's not a caster. We call that caster bias. You're not supposed to teach teach one specific team. But now, Sejuani has been picked up. No Zach to be found. Of course, banned away. So still respect over to Xerxes. And now we get to find out how effective his Sejuani is.
Yeah, but unfortunately, a lot of the early game will just be spent farming. But for G2, their goal is to be a little bit more aggressive in the early game. They have the Zoe, who is going to struggle in the very early levels up against Nisqy, or rather the Azir. In the bottom lane, though, G2 should have push with the Tristana and the Janna, and that's going to give a little bit of opportunity for Jankos to look for a bit of an invade. Now, Nisqy did have this ward in the river, so he will know that Jankos is trying to set up Perks for success in the early game, and will be able to slide away from any danger.
And Perks got a teleport from a minion, so he's going to go back and buy an item and return to lane.
Do you know, my common reaction when I see that is, no! Why?
I miss when Gunblade was in the game and you would consider Alta pouring out of the game every time she'd pick one
so
up.
first time I played it.
Not important. Now getting a lot of damage down, so he's going to have to flash, but he knows he can't get out of this. Jankos doesn't commit. Great use of the dash. Aggressive turn. Keeps him alive there in the exchange.
He is going to lose his Raptors, though, which is a little unfortunate for Xerxes. Jankos utilizing the fact that Nisqy was pushed underneath this tower, and he does have more early game damage than the Sejuani does. Now he's making his way up top, and he's just taking away all the camps. Lovely early aggression from Jankos, and this is just the power of pushing lanes. We talked about how Odo was going to get pushed under his tower, Kasing was going to get pushed under his tower, now Perks
takes a lot of damage. Still playing frontline, though. He sees that the soldiers are gone. Just going to poke Nisqy right back. That looks so grim at first, but big show of confidence from Perks to push forward into that trade.
Now, the reason why Perks was able to do that was because he knew he had the minion wave advantage. There were more minions pushing for him than there were for Nisqy, and because Nisqy had used his Q, by walking forward, Nisqy actually now had no way to get his soldiers back to him. So Perks, just with a really smart understanding of the matchup, taking so much damage, but still playing without a fear in the world.
Uses the cleanse that he picked up almost immediately, looking for a little bit of extra damage on the Spell Thief proc. Interestingly enough, Thaddeus, we are starting to see a bit of a shift in terms of the runes that people have opted for. No free boots coming in for Hjarnan. Instead, both Hjarnan and Perks opting for the minion dematerializer.
Yeah, there was a really good article that was written, I believe it was written by Chakrez, where he talks a little bit about how valuable the minion dematerializer is in pro play, largely just because of the pressure that you gain. It gives you additional wave clear because you do bonus damage to minions of that type, depending on which ones you dematerialize, but also just in the laning phase, it gives you that extra bit of pressure. So that's why champions like the Zoe make sense, but it's interesting that you would go for it on a Tristana, given the amount of natural wave clear that you have with things like your explosive shot and your passive.
Maybe just trying to sustain the push on the bottom side. Jankos, though, gonna have to run, pull back. Luckily, Perks has pressure in the mid lane, so Nisqy not in a position to punish. So you can see the full rune choice is now coming in. Summoner Spellbook for both members of the Splyce bottom lane. Get ready for some TPs as we move later. Everything else looking pretty standard.
Yeah, for those that may have only just joined us, you may be surprised to see the Spellbook on top of a Cogmore. This has recently come into fruition just because of how valuable the Keystone is, and with kind of the nerf to the overheal build, as it were, where you go for the maximum sustain. Instead, what you can do is, oh no, I've been chunked out of lane, I've taken a lot of damage. That's okay, I can just TP back to lane. Or you could be like Vitality and take creative routes and use those teleports to force plays around the map and create kind of early tower advantage or objective advantages through that use of the global summoner spell.
And that's what Perks is doing, although for now, if TP back to lane does use the River Ward to do so. Doesn't want to set himself up to get poked out immediately upon entering lane by Nisqy. Teleport would telegraph his arrival. Perks now hitting that point that you talked about earlier, Bettis. You talked about the 6, level 7 kind of being an important break point in this matchup.
Yeah, and as a result, you can just see how much wave clear Perks now has. Gone back to pick himself up double Doran's Ring for just that raw ability power, and also going for very early Ionian Boots of Lucidity to give him a bit of extra spam ability on top of his Q. Very low mana ability, generally on a pretty low cooldown as well, but also notice how Perks is positioning, always off to the side, giving him better angles to land his Paddle Star and his Sleepy Trouble Bubble.
Got it. You didn't backwards it this time. Good job.
So I love the way in which Perks is playing, but now we want to see where he can roam. He's going to go base a little earlier. I don't know if he's picked himself up another teleport, but I think he's just going to have to walk back to lane. Oh, never mind.
No, he picked up a TP.
Yeah, yes, he did. Dude, 2 TPs in a single laning phase?
Niski is frustrated, but to be fair, his plan was always to scale, although this is especially oppressive and difficult, as it's almost impossible. Really? GLP?
Yep.
This man, one is playing very well, but two, oh, might just get turned. Not feeling so good about those double TPs now. Niski has no mana. J4 is here. Perkz running for safety. He wants it. One more auto. Doesn't get it. Oh, so close. Good play by Niski.
Perkz playing with fire there, and Niski with a very confident punish. Love the fact that they were finally able to shut that Zoe down. Just so unfortunate that Niski couldn't secure himself the kill. A clutch stopwatch coming out from the Zoe allows Perkz to get away with his life.
Now we get a chance to take on the top lane as the mid lane is an absolute bloodbath. And Wonder and Odo just trading it out. This is the tanky top lane. We don't see this as much as we used to, Vedius, but it does feel sort of kind of like the wet noodle fight of days past.
Oh, we haven't used that phrase in a while. That used to be our buzzword, but since the tanks have been disappearing, and we have to look in a little bit more closely at the players, because individuals like Odoamne haven't really been stepping up like he used to. We've seen a lot of attention put towards him from the opposition, but for him individually, he really hasn't had the same performance that he would have liked.
But that's the most attention we're going to get on top side because they're both playing tanks this time around. So there's no reason to give them attention and all of the focus.
So I've just been updated. That was Zoe's 5th TP of the game. Thank you, production, for that bit of information.
Fifth cast of TP or
remember
fifth pickup?
That was the 5th use of TP this game. So
8 minutes, folks. 8 minutes.
But remember what we were talking about with regards to the blue control. They had bot pushing. Given that Zoe was now level 7, she had the ability to move up with the jungler, and G2 once again maintain control around these objectives. And this just echoes the fact that G2 are playing the early game well. They know how to use pushing lanes. They know how to use the strengths of their composition. And they're able to find these early advantages, which is why they're one of the best teams at building early game leads. The problem comes when you get to the mid game. Splyce is playing a scaling composition. They expected this to happen. What they're relying on is G2 to make these mid-game mistakes, to fail, to properly close out the game, build up bigger advantages, play properly around the Baron, with which their comp can then scale up, start to win fights, and then turn the game back in their favor.
The question is, can G2 execute cleanly on the advantage that they've built in this early game? Because the mid game, the late game, that's been the struggle for them. But Perkz playing with a lot of confidence, very cocky here. Xerxes gonna look for the lockup. Janko's trying to turn it back. He will grab one kill. And it is there to back him up, and they are going to be able to retreat. A good sleepy trouble bubble on the deathbed of Perkz will take him to safety. Witid now on the run. Retreating into no man's land. Not a whole lot of interest to chase. You can see teammates pinging out a path of escape, but very bloody exchange. I feel like good response comes in from Splyce, and honestly good positioning from Xerxes to punish the aggression there from Perkz.
Yeah, I think that was a smart play from Splyce. But Xerxes was just hanging over the wall, was able to punish the fact that Perkz has consistently played extremely far forward up in this lane. But again, Jankos was always in the vicinity. This guy has spent a lot of time hanging around the middle lane, making sure that Perkz can look to play this way. And I feel like G2, they were just setting up for the dive. They were waiting for the play to happen. Unfortunately for them, Xerxes was ready and was able to punish himself.
Yeah, not quite respecting the potential for a counter gank. Maybe a bit too confident in the vision that they do have.
Surprised me a little bit because I did see in the replay there was actually a ward just behind the Raptors. So perhaps Xerxes taking a route that meant that he didn't end up getting spotted. And G2, regardless, they ended up falling a bit behind, but gold still ever so slightly in their favor.
And now they have the Rift Shell as well, so that could turn into a 1k gold advantage if they're able to take down a tower. Blue buff will go over to Perkz. Does not have his 6th or 7th teleport of the game, so we'll just return to lane instead.
He's swapped out.
Going for the cleanse now. And oof. You know, no matter how many times I see someone get hit with a paddle star, it still physically hurts me.
Ah, okay, so they actually had full vision of Xerxes. Thank you very much, observers and production, for giving us that information. The fact that it seems like the G2 were then prepared to try and set up a counter gank, but ended up falling short, so a little confusing decision-making there from G2. Regardless, moving on. Let's move aside from
It is a mistake, and we have to keep our eyes out if they're going to keep pushing for, I would say, safely over-aggressive plays. But for now, things are still going in their favor, and we are approaching that mid-game point ever so quickly, where G2 really need to keep their coordination together. They're grouped up as 4 on the bottom side, 3 members strong on the side of Splyce. See Sejuani there, though, and they're just going to back off. Not interested in taking the fight. Mid lane, though, continues to be a big problem. Luckily, Shifting Sands takes Niski to safety, and they see now that he's pushed back, this is going to be an easy siege. It is signing your own death warrant to approach a tower with a Zoe waiting under it.
So first tower blood goes down in favor of G2, utilizing the early power of their composition to build up a pretty significant lead. Bot tower is going to follow shortly after. Things looking very bright for G2, but again, Drake, as we've already talked about this, G2 have done this before. G2 have been able to get these early leads, but it's all about transitioning into an effective mid-game team.
And now, as they've taken 2 towers to 0, as they built themselves a 2K gold lead, Base, what's the next step here? Do they just keep swapping? Do they keep looking for more objectives?
Top lane is definitely the next big focus of them. It's a little unfortunate that they had to use the Rift Tower on the middle lane, because you would have liked to have used that on a tier 2, but things start to become really hard when you take all of the outer towers down this quickly, because you can't really play for tier 2 towers unless you get a very strong kill and the enemy isn't in a good position to defend. Your focus needs to be on controlling enemy jungle, stealing away as many camps as you can, starting to put Xerxes behind, and just focusing on building bigger and bigger gold leads, maybe even going for a dive.
Yeah, Jankos versus the entire team of G2 that is here. Jaina on the way as well. They could be in trouble. Odawane doing his best to survive. Kasing coming in with the TP to save the day. Wonder not going to ult back. Perks now retreating to safety. Good defensive play comes in from Splyce, not looking to let G2 snowball this gold lead any further.
Party in the top lane. Forget the bot lane party. It's old news. Bottom lane takes teleport. They TP up to help Odawane out. Wonder is forced to use flash, but in terms of a summoner spell trade, this is definitely an advantage gain for G2.
Kabi and Kasing suffering there as well, as they took a lot of damage under the tower. Could be difficult for them to stay up in this lane. No sustain realistically available for Kabe at this point. Melcy opted to take it in the Legend tree, or a Legend bloodline.
And remember, we talked about Kabe being the most consistent player on this Splyce roster so far. Look at the CS differential between the two carries. Kabe, even though he was permanently pushed underneath this tower, and he even lost his tower very early on, he's actually 25 farm ahead of his lane opposition. That just goes to show how effective this individual has been performing throughout the Spring Split so far.
Have to see if it will be enough. If the Kog'Maw can't carry this team through, the rest of the map is still struggling. Niski not going to opt to support. The top laners are still being left alone, although now they occupy the bottom lane. Bot lane matchup now moved to the top side. Kabe with the Gwynsus, now that it's stacked up, now that he's able to maintain that, Norton has to play a little bit more back. Of course, have to respect the Tom Kench, kind of the potential for him to lock you up if you do get too close.
Now again, the blue buff has been respawned. G2 a little bit slow on this one. Usually they do have a lot more control, but here are some of the stats to back it up. Plus 1.1k gold difference at 15 is the average for G2. They know how to get these early game leads. In this game, they're sitting at about 1.9k, 1.8k. It's just about the transition, Dracos, and that.
Yeah, and it's as a 1-3 team, when you were first in gold leads at that point in the game, that has to be frustrating, because you know that you're getting the leads in the early game. You're just not transitioning them later. But Jankos may not be super active in terms of plays onto champions, but he has been very good about taking down these objectives consistently, grabbing the first dragon of the game, getting the Cloud Drake for free as he sees the opportunity. But the Cloud Drake is down. Splyce now know that it is down, and they could look for an opportunity topside.
Now, Kabe and Kasing actually have a bit more pushing power. Yanin is a little afraid of this Rage Blade that has been completed for Kog'Maw. Very big item spike. Nash's Tooth on Niski as well.
Oh, Perks uses the cleanse to try to get out. Drowsy will mean that that is a sleepy boar. Perks will make it to safety. Can still be there with the Battle Star to clear the wave. Good attempt. Does force out the Summoner Spell from Perks.
Ankos moving up through the middle lane, but Splyce recognized that there is no ultimate available on the Xerxes. So, Kabe and Kasing can still feel confident about pushing in that top lane. Things right now, though, going fine for Splyce. Remember, we said things get a little bit harder now for G2. They want to take that final outer tower and then gain control over the enemy jungle. But Splyce playing with a little bit more confidence now than they did before. We're seeing Niski dive in to try and go for these little more aggressive trades. We see Xerxes throwing out his ulti to try and catch targets out of position. Both Kabe and Kasing now the ones actually pushing in this 2 versus 2, and they've extended the CS advantage rather, even further. Splyce, I feel like that they're starting to gain a little bit more confidence as the game progresses.
We have to remember the pressure is on G2. Of course, Tristana is a scaling threat that you have to keep in mind, but with 3 tanks and 2 massive damage threats, you have to assume that it's going to be a little bit easier for Splyce to get what they want in those team fights, and significantly harder for G2 to find a way into the back line to shut down Kabi or Niski. Tom Kench ultimate comes out to stop Hjarnan from taking the tower. Will get some decent damage down. Has to rocket jump out to safety as they pull back. Splyce continued to deny G2 the last outer tower. Sing and Kabi always on the way. They have swapped their TPs back. Exhaust and heal ready to go if they're needed in a fight.
I like that swap back from Splyce. They recognize, you know what? Where else are we really going to use our TPs to this early on in the game?
Oh, Niski is going to get pushed back. Nice timing on the portal jump. Sees it coming. Perkz trying to sidestep, looking for the fancy forward. Can he get it out? Yanko stopping them from pursuing any further, but just going to save his mid laner in the end. Well played on the side of G2.
Nice save there from Jankos. Able to use his ultimate to prevent the follow-up from Xerxes.
Oh, here comes Wonder. Not going to connect, though. Doesn't get the knockup. Looks for a little bit of a slow. Bellows Breath connects, but he's going to have to walk away empty-handed. Not too happy with that one.
Niski wants to avoid being fried chicken this time around. Is able to dash out. Forced to use the flash, though. As he tried to make the play onto Perkz. Summon a spell, traded for summon a spell. But I love this playstyle from Niski. Gets himself now a CS advantage. We have criticized his individual performance, the fact that he has been losing during the laning phase, and while yes, he was getting bullied a lot by Perkz in the early phases of the lane, he's been able to turn it around. He's now the one putting the pressure back on Perkz. He's now the one with the CS advantage. And we're going to be watching how he contributes to these fights, because 2 main damage dealers on Niski and Kabi, a lot of focus and expectation is going to be put on him to perform.
And what we've seen in the past when Zoe has been successful, it's been kind of poking in and out, looking to dismantle, looking to find those picks on the edges of fights. And right now, Perkz is kind of just locked into this mid lane, stuck in this tug-of-war of pushing back and forth with this Azir. He's not getting a lot of freedom to get out of the lane, although he may find that now. G2 looking for the same top lane play they tried to find earlier. Splyce are ready for it, though, so it will be an all-out battle if they try to get this one started. Kasing no exhaust, as he did use the TP to come back to lane. Splyce have to be ready to fight for this if they want to go, but they're just going to give it up. Okay, they've stalled out long enough on this tower. They feel comfortable giving up the objective.
So G2 happy with that. 3 towers to 0 right now. Have the Cloud Drake as well. Maokai does have the teleport. Could be looking for a flank.
Kasing now moving in. Serves with the ult to flash forward. It's going to hit Hjarnan. The immediate opt out with the Mikhail's Crucible. Good play coming in from Wadid, but it looks like he may have to sacrifice himself. Monsoon, as he tries to peel back, looks to try to land the tornado, will not connect. That is one dead Janna. Buys a bit of time, finds the freeze frame, but not the save, as Splyce will grab a kill right back in return.
Now it's Splyce trying to be proactive. G2, they overstayed their welcome in the top lane. This means that the support will end up losing his life. And Wadid, he failed to flash at just the wrong time. He wanted to try and get over Odoamne's ultimate. If he had, maybe he could have escaped, but unfortunately for him, it wasn't quite right. So G2, they're sticking around longer than they need to. They got the tower, they got what they wanted, and instead they continue to push. Hjarnan and Wadid sticking around longer than intended. Yanko sticks around to try and help them, but here we see the failed flash from Wadid. You saw the intentions were good, execution, not quite so much.
It's like, in theory, you can flash over an Ashe Enchanted Crystal Arrow, but
it's kind of hard.
Maybe just flash to the side. In this case, it's like there's 5 Enchanted Crystal Arrows, so maybe just accept your fate. Goes for the noble escape anyway, not going to find it, so Splyce do manage to strike back. Gold lead still in the favor of G2. We're 20 minutes into the game, 3 towers to 1. Cloud Drake for G2 as well. 1k gold lead, Baron now live, Infernal spawning shortly, but Niski continuing to scale up, approaching the 2-item point. Kog'Maw is there already, and he's starting to get pretty scary. Kabi going to be a massive damage threat.
Now for Splyce, one of the big issues they've had in the past was their inability to find successful fights. When we saw Xerxes playing Zac, he actually had a very impressive performance when it came to a lot of the initiations. He went on to really good targets, his focus was very intelligent, and now he's playing Sejuani, which is... I'm not sure if it's easier or harder to initiate. I guess with the range, Zac would arguably be easier, but you have a bigger AoE with the Sejuani, so either way, he's on something that can force fights, which is a good thing for Splyce, especially when you have an AD carry like Kabi.
And you have to be decisive, because unlike Zac, once you go in, you can't really get out. Zac has always the luxury of the ultimate to try to pull himself back to safety, but Xerxes still has been struggling in this game. You can see the jungle CS difference and the fact that there is a completed Warmogs on the side of Jankos. So a bit of an edge onto the G2 jungler. Jankos, however, maybe not wanting to approach the Azir without intent to kill there. It does take a lot of poke.
Infernal has now spawned. G2 have pushing mid and bot. They're bringing the AD carry down as well to help secure this objective. It looks like Splyce are going to give this one over for free.
And of course, if Splyce opt to take the fight, they'll be greeted with a free redemption, courtesy of Zoe. So have to be careful, but ooh, big confidence move here. They actually have an Azir and a... This is nuts. Kog'Maw is there too. If Splyce can burn through this, they actually are. They're burning through it so quickly. They should just be able to take it down. G2 trying to force this fight, but Splyce with a way more decisive call are going to get the Baron in the end. Was it worth it, G2? You can have your consolation prize, but it's now Splyce in control of the game.
And it's these mid-game decisions, Dracos. G2, they thought that they would be safe to take over the Infernal Drake, but they moved their AD carry down as well. They completely conceded the top side of the jungle, and Splyce just said, oh, well, we have a control ward. We know your jungler isn't here. We have Kog'Maw and Azir. We're more than happily going to take this objective for free.
And any other champions, I could understand the decision that G2 had, but that's a Kog'Maw and Azir. These guys are basically built to kill Baron. They do so much consistent damage. And now all those towers that Splyce missed out on the early game, they're basically free. Yeah, it's going to take a bit of time, but they have plenty of it. 2 minutes and 45 seconds till that Baron buff expires. This should be all the tier 1s quite easily. Odo already working on one on the bottom side, but you still have to give respect to that Zoe. Perkz trying to poke down Copy every chance he gets.
We talked about how Odo has been one of the underperformers, but he is yet to die this game, Dracos. He's feeling happier. A couple more resources invested his way in the sense of double TP meant that he wasn't camped this game. He's actually had a solid performance. Yes, he's a little bit behind, but now we're going to see a lot more of his value in these fights. Maokai did not get camped by G2. The Maokai has come through, and you're just starting to see this team fight composition come together for Splyce. They're hitting those big item spikes. They're going to start to look scary.
Ooh, Vedius. It's just Splyce punishing so well that decision from G2, still just caught me off guard. This team is shaping up much quicker than I expected after seeing some of the fumbles in previous weeks, but they are looking good this time around. Even Niski, while struggled in the landing phase, not nearly as much, showing a lot more confidence. And I like that Splyce are still putting a lot onto this guy's shoulder, that now in the late game that he has to be a bigger carry threat. Confidence comes in from Hjarn. Odoamne is still on the front line. He flashes out.
Yeah, I think Odo thought to himself, my teammates were closer than they actually are. He took a little more damage than he wanted to, so he's forced to flash away. This could hurt their ability to initiate, waiting for Niski to arrive.
Perkz just continuously poking, 5 men strong from Splyce in the mid lane. G2, though, not scared, not afraid to take the fight. Only a 2k gold difference in 25 minutes, definitely not the end of the world, but Kog'Maw and Azir are steadily getting stronger, so it's going to take Perkz to poke down a massive threat. That is a drowsy Kog'Maw. Is going to stop any follow-up, so Xerxes' ulti, even though it hit the right target, not going to land to much avail, but Splyce are steadily getting chipped down. Have to be careful, have to respect the paddle stars. Oh, Yanko's now moving in. It's just going to move right back out, because this is a trade of flashes. Nobody actually wants to commit to this fight. Yanko's...
Love this back and forth from G2, though. They're really being patient with how they play this. They're not allowing Splyce to get too close to the turret. Perkz sitting in the fog of war, throwing this poke out. The risk of landing asleep is so big for Splyce that they just have to constantly show their respect. And they're not able to secure themselves that mid-tier 1. So G2, they weather the storm of the Baron and they only end up losing 1 turret.
And in so many games, Baron is usually guaranteed tier 2s. This game, they can't even finish off the mid lane tier 1, so well played on the side of G2, but Splyce are still here. Splyce are ready. They have
my word.
Edge on the wave.
And now, you know, we've criticized Niski, but look at this. Level 16 Azir to the 14 of Perkz. He spent so much time grouped up with his jungler and just throwing out this poke that Niski's been moving off to a side lane. He's been farming his way up. You can see he probably, and if we can just have a look at the gold, you can see that he's sitting on a healthy amount right now because I believe he hasn't backed in a while. And this is going to be scary for G2 because I don't see ways in which they can really win these fights. You can see 1,700 gold right now. He's just waiting for the Void Staff to come through. And Splyce now continue their siege on.
They're only going to land on the 1, though. Splyce pretty comfortable to keep the siege going. They have a Kog'Maw and Azir. They don't even need the Baron buff. They're going to break their first tier 2, start to extend that gold lead. 3k in their favor. Sing and Kavi now moving back into the mid lane to stop the wave from pushing. We've got Hjarnan doing his best Reckless impression off there on the side lane, looking to break that tower while the rest of his team holds.
And that's why Splyce were able to make this move, because Hjarnan was not near the team. G2 did not feel confident enough to go for a fight. One of their big damage dealers was unavailable. resulting in a free tower going over to Splyce. 4-3 now in their favor, securing a very healthy gold lead. And really, G2 are just relying on Perkz to find picks at this point, because in the full 5v5, you'd have to give the advantage over to this Azir and Kog'Maw duo. They just do so much damage at this point in the game. They are so terrifyingly strong. And things are just going to be really difficult for G2, especially like, how do you force an initiation onto those two carries with a Tahm Kench in the game?
And this is the nightmare. This is what we talked about. G2, the weakness, late game or mid game shot calling and decision making. Splyce, the strength, team fighting.
And late game decision making.
Exactly, they're exactly where they want to be. Splyce are in their wheelhouse. So if G2 are going to overcome this, it's going to take so much coordination that we just haven't seen from this roster yet.
Well, now the pressure's on. The game is not over yet. The gold still heavily in favor of Splyce, and the scaling will continue. But if Splyce never find that fight, then G2 still have an opportunity. Baron going to be spawning in about 1 minute 20 seconds. The worst case scenario for G2 is to give this Baron over for free. If they can secure it for themselves, they can be the ones to set up the siege, and they can then start to put the pressure back onto Splyce.
And of course, despite not having a 0, uh-oh, that's a bad decision coming in. Sing. Caught in the middle. He's going to finally make it out in the end, but this could be a massive game changer. Now keeping the fight started. Jarnan is off to the side. Mikhail's Crucible comes in, but it's a little bit late. Call of the Forge God comes out. G2 calls for A, baby, but they're not going to find the follow-up. And we'll back off in the end. Just an exchange of cooldowns once again, but G2 still come out on top.
But that was a very weird play from Kasing and Kobbe. They tried to go for a flank onto Perkz, thinking that they could get a punish down onto him, but he is running the cleanse. He still had his flash up. Perkz, with the Sleepy Trouble Bubble, was always going to land that sleep. And the rest of Splyce, the best that they could really do was help defend on the disengage. They weren't in a position to properly fight. And it forced a lot of summoner spells out from Splyce. Niski has nothing available. The TP is gone from Odoamne. Heal now used for Kobbe as well. And this is looking a little brighter for G2. Now if they want to force another fight, killing Niski becomes that bit easier.
Not having flash or cleanse is a pretty big deal. I feel like as you move later into the game, it's much harder for them to fight, but it's on G2 to find another opportunity like the one they just saw, because ultimately that was Kobbe and Kasing overstepping. That was not G2 dictating the pace. Although maybe they can play with a little bit more confidence now that they were able to find that, now that a few summoner spells are down. For now, they continue to push up in the mid lane. Perkz getting frisky, but Niski not nearly as scared as he once was. Happy to just sidestep and throw that soldier forward.
Now both teams gather in the middle lane. Bot and top pushing in favor of G2. There's a good map setup for them. Also Xerxes off to the side, but flank Odoamne comes in for the flank.
Wonder looking for the setup. Not going to connect. Has to flash out. Odo could be in trouble. Jarnan goes over the wall. This man is so aggressive, but he is not scared. Odoamne is set to fall, and it looks like he will be taken down. Meanwhile, Sleepy Trouble Bubble goes in, but it's just the one pickoff thus far for G2, and it could not be better timing. Baron is up and available. It could be a big risk, but they have the chance to go for it.
This is the best kind of pick that G2 could hope for. Perkz, again, landing consistent damage, finding these Sleepy Trouble Bubbles to keep his team alive, and making it difficult for Splyce to really find that successful engage. We talked about how Xerxes should feel a little confident, or more confident, playing the Sejuani compared to the Zac, but right now he's yet to find a successful team fight as the Baron kicks off for G2.
20 seconds left for Odoamne. No TP up and available, so it's just the 4 members of Splyce standing strong, looking for an opportunity. It all comes down to the steal.
I feel like G2 don't need to gamble this. It would be a big mistake and risk from them.
Pulling back. Looks like waiting for the cooldown. Jankos is going to get it in the end. Nice flash forward from what did, it looked like. Using the Monsoon to make sure that no one else could enter the pit. Will ensure the secure there in the end. G2 now have an opportunity. Ball is back in their court.
Now, it was also good coordination with Perkz and his damage. So Odo comes in for the flank, hoping that the rest of his team can follow up. Wonder alone zones 4 members of Splyce with his ulti. That means that too much damage is taken. Jarnan very aggressively jumps in over the wall. He is confident that his team will follow up. They do. They get a kill onto Odo, and now G2 think, hey, we have the numbers advantage. We have a Zoe, and if we play our cards right, we can burst this Baron down without Splyce having an answer.
Perkz, you can see now, with the Baron buff and his team behind him, much more confident to poke out. Doesn't necessarily have this sustained damage of the Azir. There's a lot more burst. And now they play the old Protect the Cannon minion game. Or the chase down Odo as he has been caught out. Sleep does
no
connect.
flash.
They're not quite sure if they want to commit. Kissing puts the tree in his mouth, vegetarian. He's going to back away. Tier 2 drops. G2 just on the retreat, happy to get the small advantage there. Still 2 minutes left on the Baron buff. Perkz does opt for the back in the end.
I'm a little disappointed in Splyce. I feel like that they were in a really good spot to just force a lot of fights, and I feel like they were too afraid to take a couple risks. They showed a little too much respect to Perkz and Hjarnan, and I feel like they didn't weigh up how much stronger their comp and their champions were at that point in the game. Like, Kobe was in a position where he had a full item over Hjarnan, and he's playing a Kog'Maw. We just needed that one Sejuani ult, and he would have just ripped through that front line. Even if Wonder comes through, I feel like Splyce should have been able to win those fights, but they waited a little too long. They couldn't deal with the poke from Perkz, and then he turned it around, and he found those picks that have gotten G2 a little bit more of an opportunity back into this game.
And it's rough, because you wanted the more aggressive plays, but we saw Kissing and Kabi maybe too aggressive.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Leaping into unknown territory, thought they had the flank. Turns out they were leaping into the entire G2 lineup. And Odo, one of the members we had kind of a big question around, hasn't found the best opportunities, has been getting caught out, and it's not really something that Splyce can afford. Luckily, he's very tanky. It's hard to kill him, but when you did, or when they did, you saw G2 quick take of the Baron, no hesitation. Now they're in a difficult spot. We have to see if Splyce can keep the communication together through some of these kind of frustrating misplays.
G2 feeling much happier now that they have the Baron, though. Gonna be a minute left, and their eyes are set on this bottom tier 2. They're maintaining control over Splyce's jungle. They're setting up towards the bot side because they know the Elder Drake is spawning relatively soon, and with 3 Drakes under their belt, picking that objective up will give G2 a nice team fighting boom. Happy to have the Infernal single Infernal. Well up to scaling as well for Hjarnan. He starts to finish more AD items. Perkz continues to snipe onto Odoamne. Maybe not who you'd consider the priority target, but a tank entering the fight with 50% health is not a good thing. Jankos continues to utilize that Cataclysm, not to find kills, but to zone people off of the tower. G2 starting to get a bit of a death grip on this game as they just keep pushing in, stopping Splyce from respawning, but Baron buff is about to fade. Maybe now Splyce can start to fight back. Exactly that. With the Baron buff gone, Splyce's comp he's in a better position to try and force these fights, but we actually have to see them force it. Perkz is the one causing the issues right now. He still has the cleanse. I think it makes a lot of sense in this point of the game, but also the Banshees. This is another thing that makes it even harder for Splyce to find that initiation onto him, because as long as that is up, just what spells are you going to use to initiate on the obnoxious little tricks?
Yeah, what are you willing to give up? What team fight value will you exchange to hope?
Oh, can he do it? Can he do it? Can he do it? Can he do it? Nope.
Not going to get it that easy, Thaddeus. That's probably the best one you could hope to pop it, though. Not
or maybe a Kog'Maw ultimate.
Yeah. Also not bad, so decent options. Niski.
Banshee's Veil himself.
Oh. And of course the Tahm Kench Devour looks like it does cancel the sleep in the end. Doesn't have it twice, though. So it's just going to be the body block this time around, although no follow-up is going to come through on the Paddle Star. You can see G2 getting themselves back to even with that Baron, as it was a 3k Baron power play.
But look at the minimap, because you can see G2 set up a lot of deep vision, but the Dragon itself, Splyce have plenty of wards littered around and know that this is happening. They want a challenge, we're going to see a fight.
4k dropping. Ult straighted. Maokai versus Ornn. Throwing it back, hitting 2 members of the team. Kabi still on the backside. 3k on the Elder Dragon. Not sure who's going to look to take it. The fight has already started. Jankos, what is the decision going to be? He's trapped in the back of the pit. G2 are on the retreat. Perkz is not going to connect any of the skill shots. Jankos is just sitting here tanking this Dragon. What is going on? Jungler's going to battle it. Jankos gets it. Huge team fighting against G2 if they can force the fight. Xerxes already left in the pit. He's going to get taken out immediately. Kazing says no, but Jankos wants to keep the fight going. So low is the thick skin procs. Sleepy on the backside is the Tahm Kench, but Wonder leaps into safety. Perkz on the front line. He's going to find one as Xerxes finally falls. And now it's a Zoe on the hunt. Can she get any closer? Hjarnan moving in as well. If they can find the reset, they can keep this fight going. Flash is coming out for Splyce, and things are just starting to fall apart. Sundisk will ensure a safe retreat, but that is a big win for G2.
Oh, it certainly is, Dracos. They've got their eyes set on the first inhibitor of the game as well. 5 members strong. G2 are looking to turn this game back in the favor of theirs.
Inhibitor goes
That was
dead.
awful. That was so bad.
And G2 turn it back in the favor
love theirs. Thank you. Thank you very much. I will be here all week. Anyway, G2 now reclaim control over the enemy jungle. Baron going to be spawning in about a minute's time. Elder Drake should still be up when they take that objective too. But what we're seeing is a great combination between Perkz and Jankos when it comes to securing these objectives. Look at the burst. The burst coming out from Perkz as he takes out this dragon. They're just weathering the storm of these ultimates. Wonder soaking up a lot of the damage, while Jankos soaks up a lot of the Drake damage. And this dragon goes from 2.5k to 1,000, 700, and then Jankos gets himself the smite.
Well played. You can see the re-engage, how close this fight is, but once Splyce are scattered, we saw this in the previous game with Schalke, once they're struggling to find a position for that back line, it gets harder and harder, and where your tank line just gets cut through so easily before a fight even starts, it's pretty much impossible to play these fights out as an Azir, as a Kog'Maw.
Yep. It certainly is, and when all of the initiation tools are also left unavailable, Splyce, unfortunately, are kind of left up a creek without a paddle. Therefore, someone who does have a lot of paddles is Perkz, and he's looking to use it.
Oh god, he's fearless. Odoamne, Kasing, all three tanks are there, and they're backing off. They're not interested in going toe-to-toe.
Sleep lands.
He's gonna connect. Odo, nice. Knock back. May just get taken down here. A lot of damage comes in. Kasing trying to play save the day. Good engage comes back from G2. It's Cersei who's now in trouble. He may have given his life for his top laner, but that's the reset. Now they're looking for a little bit more. Yanko's on the front side. Hjarnan leaping forward. No hesitation here as G2 see the advantage. They smell blood in the water, and now they're looking for the kill as they push for their second inhibitor of the game.
G2 feeling confident. They've used this Zoe pick so effectively to shut down the late game comp of Splyce. They're going to get themselves another inhibitor. Let's see if Splyce can answer.
Are G2 going to stick around, or are they going to back out? Perkz still poking in. Sleepy Trouble Bubble. What a skill.
I mean, to be fair, Perkz, you can say what you want about the champion, but this man has been playing her beautifully.
Fantastically. Even after the struggles in the mid game, you have to give him credit for landing it. But if you're on the side of Splyce right now, one of that, if it ever lands, it stops your fight in its tracks. If you were looking for an engage, it's just so difficult to play against.
And now G2 have full control over the jungle. Perkz acting as gatekeeper, even uses the flash he picked up just for an extra bit of BM. And you can think but nothing else but defeat for the side of Splyce. Now this is the pick that came out from G2. Perkz using the ghost that he picked up from his Spelthy to chase down Odoamne. Kasing didn't have the consumer until the very last second, but the burn still coming down from the Elder Drake secures the kill. And then with him gone, the front line is missing, and G2 is saying, you know what, we can just keep going. We can continue to siege.
Niski not there either to help in the fight, and the creep wave is so massive. Triple cannon minions comes in as well, so it's just set up for G2. Good prior wave management makes that play count double, and now you can see we're just at the 6 item threshold. We're at the 6.5 item threshold, Vedius, because we can't forget the Masterwork upgrades coming in for Ornn.
The Molten Edge for Hjarnan. I know that one just because of how many times Medic said it, and it's a nice upgrade, but my word, G2, they're looking good right now.
Have to close it out though. And that's the thing that's exciting about this game and terrifying if you're G2, because one mistake can turn this against you. Perkz goes forward, and every time he does, he plays a little bit with fire, because Niski and Kobbe do so much damage. Portal Jump always going to take him back to safety, but it might bring a Maokai with him. Might bring something else along.
Splyce, they're still looking at Kobbe or Niski to make some kind of hero play, but
Sleepy Trouble Bubble is going to force him back. That's going to be easy approach on the tower. Slow, steady siege for G2, and Perkz is just raining down hell from afar.
That is the final inhibitor tower down. Just one inhibitor left for G2 to take, which will likely secure their victory, and here comes Splyce.
Ulti used on Wonder, not the target that they wanted to hit. A lot more comfort now comes in for Perkz, not a single target going to get hit.
And now all the initiation tools are gone for Splyce. They're going to be forced to retreat. Baron and Powered Super Minions bash onto the Nexus towers, and you can't help but think G2 have nothing but secured this game.
This is Splyce's Alamo. They have the tools. How long can they hold out? Oh man, double super creeps. Vedius, you're right, it's looking grim. Hjarnan, will he get free access to the towers? It looks like he will get to one on the top side. Cuts through it almost immediately. Odoamne is not even a tank anymore in the face of how much damage this Tristana does.
Hjarnan, his wood cutting level is 99, and he's looking to show off his cape right now as they siege on, but that's a lot of damage from Niski.
I want to spec into some other stats too.
Maybe a bit of defense, maybe a bit of HP will certainly help, but for him, he's all about that attack speed. Inhibitor respawned, not for long.
Super Trouble Bubble. Yanko sees an opportunity to get on the Kame, is going to block him off as Perks tries to find the opportunity to go for a little bit more. Otawamne is moving in. Call the Forge Guard going to stop the fight in its track. Otawamne trying to retreat. Sleepy Trouble Bubble connects, actually going to snag the kill. Cersei now going to go down. G2 sees the win in their sights. This is the last dance for them. Pulling back against Niski, tries to hold on. Wonder not afraid to take the tower. That's the lockup. Kusing has to save. Niski now moving forward onto Perks, pushes Yanko's back. It's one man in the midst of all of G2, but it's just not enough. G2 move in. It's the slow, steady closeout. It's going to be their game, and they're going to move up to a 2-3 scoreline with this win.
G2, on the back of Perks, are able to stay alive, weather the storm, and find the picks they needed in order to turn this into a win. Things were looking dire in the mid game. They lost that Baron to Splyce. Really good shot calling and a very effective punish from the side of Splyce. But in the end, they could not find the fights. They couldn't initiate onto the Zoe. They did not, or they weren't willing to take that gamble and go for those risky plays in order to win out on the fights. So really in the mid game, they should have been the stronger team.
Good to see, though. Coordination comes together. They're able to play a game out slow and steady, finding the opportunities where many teams would have struggled.
Here we go. Former brothers, still brothers at heart.
Lots of hugs.
And there, look at the hugs. Former teammates, still happy to see each other. Good friends, even after the battle on the Rift. It was a slow game, Dracos.
Yeah, this was a little more 8.1 classic as
Yes.
opposed to the new 8.2 that we've been seeing today. But you can't, I still respect Splyce, right? We talked about them and said, hey, this is the team that plays late game. Well, they drafted towards that. They tried to play towards it. But they still left a few too many weaknesses. And I feel like when you just can't lock down the Zoe, right, in a situation like this, it's just so hard to play.
It's one of those things you have to go back and review, right? Because you can make the argument Splyce should have tried to force more fights, but the counter argument is how easy is it really to force fights onto a Janna, Tristana, Zoe? You know, like, that is a comp that is excellent at disengaging. They constantly have this ability to find picks and poke you out, and maybe Splyce need to be a little bit more creative. Yes, maybe the onus is on them to find those opportunities. Perhaps the comps were just what made it too difficult for Splyce to really find those opportunities. So it's one of those big debate things. Need to go back and watch to see how that all broke down.
And I want to see how this team progresses, see how G2 progresses as well. There's a lot of growth across the EU LCS right now, and how teams are going to develop their identity is always interesting. Well, when we come back, what details us more about the team's performance against Splyce, and after the crushing defeat in the semifinals last summer, Fnatic get their chance for revenge on Misfits Gaming as they clash on the Rift in our final game of the day.
Gonna be a good one.
This is his prime and ready state, folks. Don't doubt that for a second.
He is not napping. He is focusing. He's meditating.
The Perks playing with a lot of confidence, very cocky here. Xerxes gonna look for the lockup. Yanko's trying to turn it back. He will grab one kill. Odo could be in trouble. Yarnet goes over the wall. This man is so aggressive, but he is not scared. Otawamne is set to fall, and it looks like he will be taken down. Niski now moving forward onto Perks, pushes Yanko's back. It's one man in the midst of all of G2, but it's just not enough. G2 move in. It's the slow, steady closeout. It's gonna be their game, and they're gonna move up to a 2-3 scoreline with this win.